this template is a track that I released a couple of years back, and it's pure samples. Okay, there's no production in it in terms of playing instruments in it whatsoever. It's pure disco samples and hip hop vocal samples, etc. I wanted to make a straight out of the box, raw, banging disco house track with no frills and just get straight to the point. And that's what I did with this. And I'm going to go through it now. And also the stems are available below. Right, so I'm going to whip through the track now and play you what I've got, and then we'll go from there. So basically, as I say, pure samples, full on drums.
Rock the disco. Rock the discotheque. Rock the discotheque. Rock the disco. Rock the disco. Rock the disco. Rock the disco. Rock the discotheque. Rock the discotheque. Rock the discotheque. Rock the discotheque.
So you get the gist of it. It's a full-on disco assault, using a couple of key samples. Well, there's 3 key samples in that whole track, which come from classic records. So I'm going to break it down for you and show you just how simple and easy it is to make funky disco house. Okay, let's go. So obviously, first up, you need a chunky beat, and I just got this one from an old samples pack. Not done very little to it at all. A small bit of EQ. Look, just brightened it up. And then on top of that, I've got a percussive sort of drum box, which is obviously a tops, which has got like a bell in it and that little disco tom. So put those two together. Just a really cool pair of drums, but they come from the similar sample pack. So, you know, it's inevitable that they were going to work together. But yeah, with your tops, obviously you take off the bottom end. That's without. So it's a full-on beat. It's got a kick under there. But what I've done is just completely eradicated the bottom end look, brought it right across here like so, and then coupled it with the drum. And then obviously let's get the main parts out first. The crash obviously is a, let me look at that crash. It's a 909 crash with a lot of delay and concert hall on there. And that's quite bright, and you know, it's spacious. It's got a lot going for it. It's got a lot in there. So that was that with the crash, and then the other stuff, which is the basic stuff, with the white noise, which is again loads of reverb on there. And the EQ, I've took the bottom end out completely and made it really trebly. The thing with white noise samples, make them really trebly as much as you can. So getting the basic stuff together, the beats and the little percussive sounds like it crashes and stuff, is the key thing, is to make sure that the crashes and the white noises are low pass, high pass, and your beats have got, you know, a chunkiness to them, and that your tops loop has removed the bottom end as well. So there's your drums, all sorted. Next up then, we've got obviously the loop. The actual loop of the track is from an old Motown record called Bad Mouthin', which came out in 1979 or 78, I can't remember. And it was famously used by Bob Sinclair and Thomas Bangalter's remix of Gym Tonic. It was famously used on that. So we took that loop there, we took that main loop there. Just looped it over the drums, simple. And I've just took the bass loop there, so they use the bass loop, if you notice, for this section here, for the build-up. And then cut it out at the end here, just to give it a bit of like, where the vocal comes in.
Rock the discotheque.
and then the main part comes in with those kind of percussive sort of sounds on that guitar. So then that second part of the loop comes in. So we've got the build up. We've got 2 sections of a build up. If you can get 2 loops out of a track that start off with bass, and then the next part is an added instrument onto that bass, and use them as your platform to build up to your main loop, that's always a good idea. Now, the main loop is obviously this one, with all the brass in there and the keyboards, and strings. And there's a section there. Backing up. Now, obviously, when you take the crashes out, it really just sounds weird, doesn't it? But then you use the white noise and the crash to help with those transitions. So that's the main loop. But the way we build this up is we have a couple of decent vocal steps. Now, I've taken Big Daddy Kane, Rock the Discotheque.
Rock the disco.
Which is Rock the Discotheque. It's famously...
Rock the discotheque.
And basically it's from one of his old records. So I've just taken that snippet and I've combined it with Malcolm McLaren's Buffalo Gals. The scratch off that.
Rock the disco.
So I've kind of done a question and answer with 2 samples. So rock the disco harp, rock the disco harp, like that. And then, but we get to this point. So it goes.
Rock the disco. Tech, tech, tech.
But there it goes tech, tech, tech. So we've gone.
Tech, tech, tech.
And then we've done the scratch here, the full scratch. So it goes. So they play together. So they're building up together, one against the other, each other. So
rock the disco. Tech, tech, tech.
Like that.
Rock the disco. Tech, tech, tech. Rock the disco, tech.
And then the vocal comes in more because I've just done Rock the Disco there.
Rock the disco.
Now it plays longer.
Tech.
Now it plays the full thing. So it's always good to don't put all your samples in at once. Make sure you build them up. If you've got 3 or 4 samples, chop them up and build them up slightly so that you're not using it all to its full capacity straight away, because people get bored straight away. You want to just spread them out and utilize them as much as you can in different ways. So we're building up, and then what we've got is some disco stabs, which is this. And you can hear the delay on that. So I put loads of delay on that and some reverb on there, I think. Cut the bottom end out. But all that is, if you listen, is the main hook's intro. It's that. And I've broken that down, as you can see. And I've put that onto the stabs channel. And it's just gone. Just extend it. So obviously I've gone too far there, but you get the idea. That's all that is. So again, I've utilized the main hook with a tiny section, delayed it, and then given it its whole, own sound, so to speak, which is the stab. So that is that one.
Rock the discotheque.
Now, to get to the point of where you want to drop it down, to this point here, everything just drops out.
Rock the disco.
It's drums and samples.
Rock the disco.
So we need to make this section, the first drop interesting, rather than just filter it down, which we can do. We could have filtered the loop down, but we chose to chop it up and make the most out of the samples, which is what I'm trying to get at here. So we've got the stabs, vocal. If you listen to that area, we've got a vocal sample and the stab doing the same thing, which is basically filtered. If you look at the auto filter here, so if we open up the drops here and then look at the filter, you'll see the same for this one. Where is it? There. So basically they're cut up in the same way, right? You could, however, do the same thing where you copy that filter, pop it onto that channel there, and it will do the same thing. So you want to make your build-ups chopped up and do the similar sort of thing with the vocal. So you put the vocal and the stab together, like that. And it just kind of creates that kind of madness that you want in that area. So we're going to build the track up. We've got the loop going.
Rock the disco.
Now everything drops out, the loops drop out, but it still plays a little bit here. Look. But all that delay on it is keeping it rolling over. And in between that, you've got your little drum loop here, your tops loop. Those disco toms. And then there's a little bit of the drum as well in the top here, like kicks, acting like kicks, like just the kicks that act in. And every time those two samples bow play, two kicks will play on top to give it the impact. Like punches through. Okay. So look at the breakdown. You've got the stab, the percussion, one kick, so poof, and then the vocal. Like that. So we just loop that. So
rock the disco.
Bam. And then underneath you've got these congos as well, look. And they make an appearance in the gaps here, look, in between the drops where the loop plays. So there's quite a lot going on. You've got the white noise has just been finished with. You've got the McLaren vocal still going like that. That's still playing. It doubles up here. Okay, so
rock the disco.
And rather than have a filtered building up and then the track kicks in, you're chopping up all of your samples, you're really breaking them up to just go hell for leather when it does kick in, and then it filters down here, look.
Rock the discotheque. Rock the discotheque.
But the addition that I've put in there is the scream from the Malcolm McLaren record. Put the load of delay on that, and then if you can see, when you hear that kick in with this, it just lifts it up. If you listen to if you zoom in on that vocal.
Rock the discotheque. Rock the discotheque. Rock the discotheque. Rock the discotheque. Rock the discotheque.
And then if you've got a loop that's probably difficult to put over beats, sometimes you can just play that loop on its own before you go back into the bass section, which is what I did here. This loop here just struggled, even though I warped it all, I struggled to get this to fit over the beats. So I dropped all the beats out except the congos and the white noise, and it plays that different section there as you listen to this. And then that's that section where you just break it down just to the bass, the drums, maybe one of the vocal samples, but just strip it back so that it got time to rebuild rather than come back in full on again. You don't want to do that. You want to have a full length of breathing space. So that's like what? Hang on. You got 64 beats there to build back up. Then you bring the vocal back in.
Rock the discotheque.
But this time, rather than have one of these breakdowns, because you don't want to repeat yourself too much, you want to go straight back in, but a surprise attack. So what it is if done here, look, I've just looped the vocals here, dropped the drums and the sample out, except the percussion one, obviously. And then it goes like this. It just does this really suddenly. And back in again.
Rock the discotheque. Rock the discotheque. Rock the discotheque. Rock the discotheque.
And then round it goes again. So yeah, that's how I put together a full-on disco loop vibe without having to have any instrumentation whatsoever. And all it requires is just EQing. You know, just a bit of EQing. If you can see, I've not done a great deal to the loops because they've already been EQ'd in a way anyway. Originally, they've got an analog EQ on them. I've just put on a bit of that just to brighten up the certain levels of the loop. Loads of delay and loads of reverb, as you can see, with the vocals.
Rock the discotheque. Rock the discotheque.
And obviously make sure that you're not clipping, you're not going over 0.6 on your meter.
Rock the discotheque. Rock the discotheque.
So there's basically the key elements to making a disco loop track, a full-on one, where you're not dragging it out too long. I mean, this is only what? Let's have a look. If I can just delete all of that. Anyway, let's get back to there. You've got a track that is 5.5 minutes long, roughly 5:25, give or take. So you don't want to draw it out too long. You just want to make your track, have an immediate impact. Chop up your loops. Break them down. Just utilize very little and spread it out. If you can see how powerful this sounds with very little. There's 3 loops from the actual original record, 4 I think. 2 vocals and a scratch sample vocal as well, and a white noise and a congo, and that's it. And your couple of beat loops. So go ahead and take these stems or take the template, have a look at it, study it, and try and come up with your own track around that by finding 2 or 3 key samples and seeing what you come up with. So that's it for this week, guys. Thank you very much. And if you do remix this or do have a go at doing something like this, please do send me your tracks. Let me see what you've got. I don't care how you think they might not be as good enough as you think they could be. Send them to me because it's important that I help you, develop further. And that's what I'm here to do. So I'd love to hear what you're doing, and we can go from there. Thank you and goodbye.